So, controversy, not in the subject matter of the story that we're looking at today, of the game that we're looking at today, but rather in the way it has been created. Uh, we are looking at the sort of uh, interactive novel version of an existing novel. So the existing novel is The Man Who Thought Things. I believe Voldemar Holst is the author, and it was written in 1938. And now the developer Tin to Tin is trying to give us the interactive in your browser version of it. And I think fundamentally that's fine. I like the idea of old classic literature being given a new skin, a new way of interacting with the questions and the core concepts that the novel was written around. In a way that's more palatable to the average person. That's good. I think that's quite important, and I approve of that process. One has to be careful about copyrights and all of that kind of thing. But the sort of copyright limitations have expiry dates for a reason, even though the people making profit of them don't like that. It is important to have these ideas continue to exist in more interactive ways. So that part of things I'm fine with. I don't think that's a controversy. The controversy here is that this developer has created a game editor like the Twine editor that he calls Connexus, that uses a lot of AI tooling. And AI is obviously a serious controversy at the moment because it is replacing people. It is taking away their jobs, in a way that is producing worse content. There is some kind of unfeeling argument to be made that if the AI was doing a better job than the person, then maybe it should replace the person, and you should have something that is more efficiently done, because that way all products become cheaper, and you can start looking at concepts like universal basic income and all of that kind of stuff to allow us to generate a better life across the way. And of course, there's huge issues around that with the way that billionaires are running things and are running them for profit and not for the good of humanity. And that's a whole separate can of worms to unpack. But specifically around AI, so the fundamental issue here is that AI does not make better stuff, or even stuff of similar quality. It makes worse stuff that is kind of acceptable, and we have this culture of accepting worse quality things, often for more money, and that's kind of what my channel is fighting about here. We don't want horrible slop from big companies that we just kind of get used to accepting. We want to be able to demand better quality stuff, and the indie game world often produces better quality stuff for cheaper, because it's people who actually care about making the games, not about making profit. And that's what this channel is built on, and that's why I think this game is so important to have a look at. Because is this okay? Is this good? And what is the alternative? If I want to make a very simple game, well, not a simple game, but if I'm a developer on my own trying to create a game, but I don't have money to pay an artist, is it then okay to use AI art? Is it all right to, for rather dramatically say, make a deal with the devil, just so that the creation can happen, so that the game can get out there, the game ideas, the game concepts can be presented to players with AI art? Where does that line get drawn? How much of it is okay because paying an artist is the most fundamental level inefficient? You're now having to pay for the human that is behind the art creation, and humans are inefficient. We cost a lot to maintain. If we can get the same quality out for cheaper, surely that's a good thing in terms of efficiency. It's a dark question to ask. It's a dark point to raise, but it is valid. History, as they say, needs its butchers as well as its shepherds. Should we not be a a social butcher here, or should we still play the shepherd? Should we protect the inefficiencies of people, even if that reduces our progress, our progression? I would love to hear your thoughts about this, so don't forget to drop your thoughts in the comments. We need to have these conversations. But I will say, if you do drop your thoughts in the comments, drop them calmly, drop them in a way that encourages conversation. If you simply state an opinion and declare it as fact, then people won't engage with it. They'll just say, well, you're not worth talking to. So ask interesting questions, ask valid questions. Sort of state things in a rational way that people can then address, because that's how you have conversations going, and that's how you get to a useful point, rather than a standoff that just leads to conflict and nothing useful comes out of it. Anyway, let's just have a quick look at this game and then a lot more critique afterwards, because that is what we do around here. And yeah, so let's jump into it. I'm going to run the game, and I'm going to full screen the game. I'm going to check that we are recording normally, and we can look at some of our tools here. And the first is some sound controls, which are fantastic because I can then drop the sounds. I don't know if that still comes through acceptably to you guys. We can also have a look at the About page, which is a dense wall of text that hasn't been formatted correctly. So I hope Connexus, which I see has a GitHub link down here, does allow for more editing of the HTML and things behind the scenes, so this kind of stuff can be fixed up, because this is an unreadable About page. Yeah, and also, why is this text box tiny? And why does my cursor change to the wrong thing when I mouse over it to click on it? So, there's a lot of fine-tuning questions here, and that it raises the concern to me that this has just been primarily produced by the AI. And I personally think AI tools are powerful. I think they're effective. I think they are something that we do need to embrace, because if one country doesn't, another country will, and it will give people the edge over it. We just need to get better at using them and how to use them, and we need to remember that they are the tools, not the creation system. So you can use AI to produce something, but then you need to do a lot of fine-tuning and cleaning up, based on what has been produced. You can't leave the AI to do everything, and it concerns me that this tool is attempting to allow you to just go, AI, make me a story about this, and blah, blah, blah. If that's the end goal, I don't think that is right. I don't think that's even close to viable with modern AI tools, and I don't think that's a good pathway to go down. I don't think that will make things better overall. So yeah, that's the kind of conversations we need to have. Anyway, the other critique I have right here is, why is this start button big and ugly and covering the text in the background and those things like that? Why is it not a small button somewhere away from the other text in the background? That's the kind of fine-tuning that needs to be done, because as a user we understand that, but the AI does not. This is some pretty artwork in the background, and if this is done by AI, then it is one of the better ones I've seen. The faces look closer to normal, although why this man is holding okay, I suppose this is cigar smoke. Alright, yeah, this is a good piece of art. I approve, and hopefully this is AI that has been touched up a bit. Anyway, let us start the story. We have scrolling text, which I never like to see, but we can click to make it finish scrolling, so we're not slowed down in our reading thereof. And we have an interesting scene with some terrible, mediumly bad AI art in the background. We have the ability to get to our menu. We have the ability to mute sound. We have this close button that just claims to end the game, although typically when you end a game in a browser, it doesn't really take you anywhere useful. That sort of thing is better seen in downloadable clients. But I mean, it's fine to have it there. And we have the maximize screen button. So the UI elements, as expected, are here. Second critique I have is, why is this Times New Roman text on a sort of largely see-through background. That is not good. When you have stuff happening in the background, it pulls the eye away from the text. It makes it harder to read. And I think on a screen, you don't really want text with serifs anyway. The Times New Roman should not be the default font here. That should be a better font. Anyway, let's read the text so we can forge ahead. The chief physician is furious. His usual apathetic, somewhat mumbled nature is gone, blown away. He paces the corridor, clenched and menacing, while his exothalmic eyes bulge even more than usual. The two nurses press themselves against the wall whenever he passes. They know there is high tension in the air. He stops, sniffing the air with his fleshy nose. Again, he hisses. This is the second time there's been tobacco smoke on this ward. Who is it? He turns his bulging eyes on you. Now, I don't know how much of this is taken from the original novel. I haven't obviously read the original novel. But I don't like this as an intro. Cold intros, cold openings can be really, really good in certain contexts, especially if you're good at then filling in the scenes. But I think for interactive novels, you want a more solid anchor point to start the player into the game. So I would add an element as your intro point to say, this is weird, we found tobacco smoke, none of the patients should have tobacco, these are very controlled conditions, how is the tobacco there? That should be how the story starts. And then as you're thinking about it, as the player's character is thinking about it, then the physician appears and starts demanding information, and that's when you can pull to the rest of the story. So I would suggest a more, because as a player you don't know what's going on in the story here. You don't know the context. You don't know that you're in a health facility. You don't know why it's weird that someone can be smoking. Obviously smoking is less common these days, but this novel's set in like 1905, I think, is when this novel's supposed to be written about. Smoking was normal there, so why is it weird that someone has a cigarette? Where are we? What's going on? You don't understand the weirdness, and that is very disconnecting, very disorienting. It does get filled in the next few clicks, but it's not a good way to start the player of an interactive novel into the setting in order to be able to make decisions. For example, now the physician is now looking at me expectantly. Well, Francis, who is the culprit? We have this horrible piece of AI art. This is not good. I get what it's supposed to be, the chief's gaze is demanding and things like that, but it's too in your face, it's too weird, it's too obviously horrible AI art. This is not a man who is asserting his authority. This is a man who is so bug-eyed he's going to try and strangle us. Not good. This is bad context. But also because we don't know the context. I mean, I understand the context a bit more because I've played a little bit further into it, but you're now giving the player questions, the resolutions that might be a decision to make, but without any of the context to make that decision from. So you need to add in a little bit more background before you start giving this the decisions, the choices here. We're going to suggest the smoke but become for the patient's room. The chief doesn't like us. He storms off. And here we have another weird disconnect where Raymond approaches you, an ironic smile on his face. We're still in the corridor. The chief is walking away, and then suddenly we're in my office, and Raymond is joining us. Did he not say something when he approached me with a smile on his face? Why? What is this weird disconnect? This weird reality shift? And again, we're making decisions without context, without any understandings of the meanings around them. So that I don't like in the way this visual novel is written. But in terms of gameplay mechanics, it's fine. The art is quite nice, and so on. And I think that's all the gameplay I'm going to show. I mean, this is a visual novel. It doesn't have any of the weird elements where you're sort of creating RPG characters or anything like that. It's just a straightforward, here is some storyline, here are some decisions to make. I don't know, does it even take us to how can I escape out of this? Let me reload. Does it? Oh, you stupid thing. If I close it, no, it wants me to close the window. I don't know if there's multiple endings that you can work towards in the storyline. Obviously, if it's based on an existing novel, there wouldn't be any like that. But yeah, there's no way to go back to his page very easily. But that's a weird itch.io thing. Anyway, so this is all the gameplay I'm going to show. So if you're not interested in hearing my critique or the discussions about AI in gameplay tools, then thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Especially comment. I want to hear your thoughts on AI. If, however, you are here for the critiques, well, we have already looked at the quality of life tools. They are there. That's fine. I don't like the sort of theming around it, but they're there. They're usable. This is a weird blob of text that needs to be fixed up, but that's fine. The text is there. It's readable. The sound is fine. I don't know. Is this a particularly sad story? I think this music might be a little bit sad. I don't think the music, at least, is generated through AI, at least not by the game tools here. It's come from attributions from other sound sources. Anyway, the sounds are fine. It's a visual novel. The sounds are not the most fundamental thing. There is some ambient background noises. They could be a little bit more dominant, while the music could be probably a bit less sad and a bit more blended into the background, but still, it's fine, it's acceptable. The art is the really big question here. Can we accept AI art into our games at this level? And where do we draw the line? You see, the thoughts I have is that there is an indie developer on his own with no money trying to create a game, and people are going to ignore his game unless there is some art in it, because people like to see things in games. Obviously, that's not necessarily. There are some amazing games out there that are pure text, and they get out there, but how many things up until now have we lost because the developer cannot afford an artist to do the artwork, can't find someone who's willing to do it for free? And I mean, that's not really fair on the artist either. So, then either just doesn't create a game or creates a game that everybody disregards because it's got no art or awful, those guys hacked away at a MS Paint. What if there are some good games that we have lost because the developer could never get off the ground because he can't afford things, whereas here he could get off the ground with AI art, done sufficiently well that the game is an interesting visual experience. So there is this defined line where you either have nothing or you have something with AI art. But at some point, you have a developer that can afford an artist, but doesn't pay the artist because he can generate AI art, and can therefore make more money from his game. And it's now a profit-based decision rather than a game creation-based decision. That's a bad thing. And it gets even worse when we consider that the AI art is not as good as an artist's art. I like the idea of an artist using AI tools and then fixing them. Like, if we jump into the novel here, like this. Let's click a bit further on. I mean, that's just horrible. There, like this piece of art. There are things wrong with it. It is AI slop. This door does not fit this door frame. Where is the rest of the door? Why is there half a door here? What's going on? I get that the AI has created this sort of scene so you can show the person walking away, show a nurse closing a door behind him. It's trying to show the elements in it, but the AI doesn't understand that the door needs to fit the whole frame. It doesn't know anything about doors. Where an AI artist might be able to, an artist might be able to fix up the AI and just say to the AI, create a hallway with the person walking down it, narrow the door frame a bit, fix it up a bit, and then add the nurse and the door and things like that is in a better way. And that's how AI should be used, is by someone who knows what's going on with the creation of art, using it to fill in a lot of the basic stuff that they don't want to have to do because it's just labor. But and then build on top of that. That's where AI is good, where it can flourish. But at the same time, we're back to the developer who can't afford to pay an artist, being able to create something that's just good enough. And there is that dividing line where he should stop creating something that's good enough, move to an artist that he can now afford, and use it to create good stuff. And where are the dangers of being good enough for profit rather than, or not good enough but acceptable for profit, because people accept slop, because that's what modern society has taught us to accept. That's where the difficult question sits, and that's what I would like to hear from you guys. That's what I want you to comment on. We need to have these conversations. We need to start talking about this thing in ways that promote people talking about it. Don't declare your opinions as the hard truth that nobody must ever question, because then people will just ignore you. Ask questions. Bring up scenarios, bring up context, and maybe from that we can start putting pressure onto those in charge to actually do a good job and make the right decisions. And that's it. That's all the critique I'm giving. I think that is really the question that this video needs to ask, is how much of this is okay, and where should the lines be drawn, and really considering the game is a secondary question here. So thank you for listening, and I hope to see you in the next video. Goodbye.